Audiobook Sweating the Tassel, Bullets, and Ink Through Everything. Audiobook Chapter 1. Now, when it came to sweating bullets, it was like every educated, instrumental, like therapeutic, veinage, drainage, whether it be the drainage of the sweat on your back or just the linear line is going down the back of your legs. Just that ball hanging out the back of your legs. Just made like for a good rim shot, it like making a play. Like dunking. Like most time you do a dunk, it's maybe like an effort in like sweating like this art, articulated like art of like bullets, streams, dreams, nightmares. All this stuff could be I'll be hitting the sweat of your navel or the sweat of your back, sweat on your balls. Just like somewhere in there. But the sweat some days represented like a tattoo. That's when you tatted your sweat, it was like tatting like signature designated artwork. It was like performing art with sweat as a tattoo. And the name of the game was just you sweat, you feel something wet, you tat it. No matter what, you just glue it on yourself and think like in the navel sweat of the back of my balls and the interior lineage of my veinage drainage pursuit of like this hyper flash of like systematic drainage that the sweat was tatted maybe as lotion, baby oil. I mean, follow me on this. Like, if your ultimate goal, of course, has something to do with this, the labor, the fruits of your sweat, I could only imagine like the depthness you could go into. Like, sweat comes in many colors. You hook it to a hyper beam or a hyper flash, it can come in any color when you project it with a laser. So let's just say you had a laser effect and you tatted it to your sweat. Now, what's the odds that you drew like this hyperbolic chamber of like sweating out the ultimate glory of like Greek gods, that something that you wanted so bad came to you by a storm of like just sweat, tears, oils, bath water, but in the midst of tatting like this scent of like glory of like this ultimate character. And the character, once again, he sweated ink and bullets. And whatever was with on him, he tatted. To make it more of a like motivational steaming pot of like just glued on like fairy tale or unimaginable plays of like, let's just say you had a faucet with like a drip tattoo, and somewhere in the midst of like draining the faucet, maybe in the freezer of like your conscious, like to actually like freeze over the actual faucet or the drip. Would it be super blue, navy blue, ice blue? But the scheme of thinking was the reason I say like navy blue because it embodies like every granulated, articulated, sweated piece. It's just like this big faucet of like gamma. capitalism of like the more I sweat, the more I like um cap myself. And like when I say cap, I mean like to tighten or to put in a threshold of like this like sweaty, steamy, blingful artwork of maybe it could be working out, running, jogging, bodybuilding, aerobic, cardio, but somewhere in there in the midst of like all these oils and bumps and bruises on the road of the journey to like making it to like the other side of freedom, or what we call just at the end of the tunnel, or just being at the end of your rope. Like stepping over the ropes, I see like this designated like character where his highlights are like his most sweatiest and oiliest of hairs. The more he sweated the hair and tatted like the faucet of the drainage on the hair, it changed colors. The hair would probably go from being like white to blue, maybe black. But each individual strand was like a blue designated and depth chart of thinking. Each individual hair symbolized a granulated sweat remark. But every time you ever sweated, just know that hair has sweated before. And then within each follicle, you find like this membrane of electricity flowing throughout of it that you lock away in like this wishing well or yeah, wishing well. And you reach in yourself with like this bucket, right? And the bucket symbolizes like uh uh a drainage. Now in the bucket, you know you can't get all the water in the bucket like a basketball bucket, but like the actual drain of the electrolytes from the points created like the still fresh character of just like the oiliest hairs. And the reason I go for the hair because it covers the temple, the body, the feet. But also, other than the hairs, you have like shaved, natural, neutral, glistening, glaze, like aura. And then within every like graze, like gracious moment of getting like older into like this biblical format of like hyper chamberic like density gravity measurements. Like what if the hairs on your body was a form of measurement of talent? Or let's just say you didn't have any hair, that your body weight or fitness level like improved like molecular hyperbolic dimensional like gratitude for like just the times you were playing your hardest. Like some people say, well, my quote is, if you're gonna play the game, play it with all your strength. It like it's like for example, a lot of people have like sports instruments tattoo, or their body is symbolizes like a certain sport. Somewhere in there, I would have took like the hyperdynamics of like the body's hyperbolic chambers and locked away like this vessel, ultimate vessel of like maneuvering through like the most strongest characters into like the super like vessel of just like, could be hair, sweat, tears, blood, just a hyperbolic chamber for 2 seconds, that when you connect with something of like a higher source or a higher power, that it took you into like this real in depth, like, or like shiny moment. Usually when you sweat real hard, you shine. So let's just say your ink is shining, like the sweat of a hyperbolic chamber. Everything is locked away in the ink and the sweat. And it symbolizes like in depthness of what I would call a blue in depth thought. The reason I say blue, because blue symbolizes like championship. Most championship lights are blue when in a hyperbolic flash of a chamber. So, like, all this is leading up to like this ultimate championship being pumped for tourney. And the ultimate getaway is, I mean, what's better than getting away in yourself? And at least you shine through your ink, like sweat glands. And I ain't talking like sweat as in like memorable sweat. Have there ever been times you sweated and it saved like a file to your memory? Just something where I was like, yeah, that was my moment. And somewhere like the sweat went into like a hyperbolic chamber of lights, people, things, items, jobs, occasions, vacations. And somewhere in there, locked away in like this hyperbolic chamber in yourself. Let's just say it's a third limb, a vessel that was to be cleared at all measurements. When you ain't got nothing to do, you just in there like clearing the levels on your vessel. What was the last level you achieved with a vessel? If you can go any higher than that, I would have tried it though, to top like some of my highest scores with the vessel. Cause a vessel is like, it's like pottery. It shapes itself over the years. And yeah, it may break, but when it breaks, it unleashes like this talent into the universe. And I grow older, and it's like it just grows over itself. Like sweat grows over itself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be sweat. It could be like lotion, once again, baby oil. But the shine it gives off, all your hard work, all those times you ever, like, if you catch in a split second, your body goes into a hyperbolic chamber of like all these shiny, wet moments. And the reason I say shiny and wet, because those are the moments when like your body are like carrying other people's water some days. It could simply be like the sweat of a thought. Have you ever sweated thinking real hard? Something like that, or your eyes got real sweaty from like blinking too hard. But like for your eyes to sweat, that means your eyes are working. Your eyes are actually doing some work without moving. I guess it's just the art of like a hyperbolic chamber of like this vessel where you time travel throughout yourself and you capture like unlock characters or sealed characters in your audience, and it just presents as a presented presentation of like the edges of like clarity, locked away in this chamber of like sweat vessels. Like, what all do you capture in a split second that it could be like a phone book, yellow pages of just like going through like hyperbolic chambers in yourself. Me, my hyperbolic chamber would be wet and like baby blue because the harder I think, the bluer I turn. And like when I turn blue, it turns my tattoos blue. And like to be in depth with something like water is one of your most prolific pro pro exams of like self character. Like it just takes you to like this journey throughout yourself of like growing from what we would call like human flesh into like a watery, subtile vessel. And even after the vessel is somewhat like oily and wet, it freezes over. Like that's a formula for like maybe having blue eyes or good hair. But to leave like the hyperbolic chamber running, like what all do you capture in the nth of a second in like this hyperbolic dimensional chamber of like just views of like where all like the hyper dynamics of like skin tone, even throughout the universe or galaxy, that within you lies some of the most powerful like neutrons or like nucleotides in the universe. These are just some of like people that pack their own universes or their own hyperbolic chambers. And this is just one chapter of many to be continued.